Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Jamestown holds a crucial place in American history as the very first permanent English settlement established in what would become the United States. Founded in 1607, it marked the beginning of England's colonial ambitions in the New World, laying the foundation for the future United States. But how did this small settlement manage to survive when so many early attempts at colonization failed? Against immense challenges such as hostile relations with indigenous peoples, disease, starvation, and internal conflicts, Jamestown endured and ultimately became a foothold for English culture, governance, and expansion in North America. This video will explore the story behind Jamestown's founding, revealing the motivations and expectations of the English settlers, who braved an unknown land. We'll dive into the brutal struggles they faced, including the devastating starving time, and how their survival was often a matter of sheer resilience, luck, and leadership. Key figures like Captain John Smith and Pocahontas will be highlighted, showing how their actions and alliances shaped the colony's fate. Finally, we'll look at Jamestown's enduring legacy, how this tiny settlement sparked centuries of exploration, colonization, and ultimately the birth of a nation. Understanding Jamestown is understanding the roots of American history itself. In the early 17th century, England was swept up in the Age of Exploration, a period defined by adventurous voyages across the globe in search of new lands, wealth, and influence. Motivated by a combination of economic, political, and religious reasons, England sought to establish colonies in the New World. Economically, the promise of valuable resources like gold, tobacco, and timber offered the potential to boost England's wealth and trade. Politically, establishing overseas colonies was a way to increase national power and prestige, especially as England aimed to challenge the dominance of Spain and Portugal, who had already claimed vast territories in the Americas. Religious motivations also played a role, as some groups hoped to spread Protestantism and escape religious persecution. Central to England's colonization efforts was the Virginia Company of London, a joint stock company chartered by King James I in 1606. This company was tasked with funding and managing the settlement of Virginia, including Jamestown. By pooling resources from investors hoping for profit, the Virginia Company aimed to create a sustainable English presence in the New World that could generate wealth and expand England's influence. At the same time, England faced intense competition from Spain, which was the dominant European power in the Americas. Spain's vast empire, wealth from New World gold, and powerful navy posed a constant threat to English ambitions. Other European powers like France and the Netherlands also competed for territory and trade opportunities. This rivalry fueled England's determination to establish a foothold in North America, making Jamestown not just a colonial experiment, but part of a larger geopolitical struggle shaping the future of the continent. The voyage to the New World that led to the founding of Jamestown involved 3 ships: the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery. These vessels set sail from England in December 1606, carrying about 104 passengers, including gentlemen adventurers, skilled craftsmen, and laborers. The Susan Constant was the largest of the 3 ships, serving as the flagship and carrying the majority of the settlers and supplies. The Godspeed was slightly smaller, while the Discovery was the smallest and used primarily for exploration once the colony was established. Life aboard these ships was difficult and cramped. Passengers faced overcrowding, limited food and fresh water, and poor sanitation. Seasickness and illness were common, and the long journey of over 3 months tested everyone's endurance and resolve. The Atlantic crossing was unpredictable, with storms, rough seas, and navigational challenges adding to the settlers' anxiety about what awaited them. Despite these hardships, the fleet pressed on, driven by hope and determination, to establish a new English foothold. After a tense and grueling journey, the ships finally sighted land in April 1607, arriving at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. The settlers soon moved upriver to a small peninsula, chosen for its defensive advantages against potential threats. This marked the beginning of the Jamestown settlement and the start of a dramatic chapter in early American history. When the English settlers arrived in the Chesapeake Bay area, selecting the site for their new colony was a critical decision. They chose a small peninsula that became Jamestown, largely because of its strategic geographic advantages. The location offered easy access to the James River, which was vital for transportation, trade, and supplying the colony. More importantly, the peninsula's position made it easier to defend against potential attacks from rival European powers or hostile Native American groups, since it was surrounded on three sides by water, limiting approaches by land. However, while the site had clear defensive benefits, it also presented serious challenges. The land was marshy and swampy, creating ideal breeding grounds for mosquitoes that carried diseases like malaria, which would later take a heavy toll on the settlers. The water in the James River was brackish and not always reliable for drinking, leading to dehydration and illness. Additionally, the settlers were unfamiliar with the land's agricultural potential, making food production difficult during their early months. Despite these hardships, Jamestown settlers soon encountered the Powhatan Confederacy, a powerful alliance of indigenous tribes led by Chief Powhatan. Early interactions between the English and the Powhatan were complex and varied, ranging from cautious trade and fragile peace to tense conflicts. The Powhatan's knowledge of the land and resources was essential for the colonists' survival, but cultural misunderstandings and competing interests often created friction. These early encounters set the stage for a complicated and often troubled relationship between the two groups, as Jamestown struggled to establish itself. Jamestown's early years were marked by relentless hardships that threatened the very survival of the colony. The settlers faced a harsh environment rife with disease, starvation, and drought. The marshy land bred mosquitoes carrying deadly illnesses, while contaminated water sources and poor sanitation led to outbreaks of dysentery and typhoid. Farming proved difficult, and drought conditions in some years only worsened food shortages. Without a steady supply of nutritious food, many settlers grew weak and vulnerable. Compounding these natural challenges was a critical shortage of skilled labor. Many of the early settlers were gentlemen unaccustomed to manual work, which left essential tasks like farming, building, and hunting neglected. Leadership problems further weakened the colony. Early governors struggled to maintain order and provide clear direction, leading to internal conflicts and inefficiencies. This lack of effective management made it even harder to cope with the mounting difficulties. Relations with the local Native American tribes fluctuated between uneasy cooperation and open hostility. Conflicts over resources and cultural misunderstandings escalated tensions, sometimes resulting in violent clashes that further endangered the colonists. The most desperate period came during the winter of 1609 to 1610, known as the starving time. With food supplies exhausted, disease rampant, and no relief from England, the population of Jamestown plummeted dramatically. Only about 60 of the original 500 settlers survived. This brutal winter tested the limits of human endurance and nearly ended the colony, making its eventual survival all the more remarkable. Captain John Smith emerged as a pivotal leader during Jamestown's precarious early years. Known for his strong-willed and pragmatic approach, Smith enforced strict discipline that was crucial for the colony's survival. His famous insistence that he who does not work shall not eat helped transform a group of inexperienced gentlemen into a more effective, hard-working community. Smith's exploration of the surrounding region and diplomatic efforts with local Native American tribes, including the Powhatan Confederacy, established vital trade relationships that brought much-needed food and resources to the struggling settlement. At the heart of the colony's early native diplomacy were Chief Powhatan, leader of a powerful alliance of indigenous tribes, and his daughter Pocahontas. Powhatan wielded significant influence over the region, and his interactions with the English were marked by a mixture of cautious trade, strategic alliances, and periods of conflict. Pocahontas played a symbolic and practical role in easing tensions. Her relationship with John Smith, and later her marriage to settler John Rolfe, became key moments in fostering a fragile peace and cultural exchange between the two groups. John Rolfe's introduction of tobacco cultivation was a game-changer for Jamestown. Recognizing tobacco's potential as a profitable cash crop, Rolfe perfected its growth in Virginia's soil and developed a strain that appealed to European tastes. This agricultural breakthrough provided the colony with a sustainable economic foundation, attracting more settlers and investment, and transforming Jamestown from a struggling outpost into a thriving enterprise. Beyond these figures, other notable settlers contributed in various ways. Thomas Gates and Thomas Dale brought military organization and governance reforms that stabilized the colony during its darkest hours. Skilled craftsmen, farmers, and laborers also played indispensable roles, gradually building the infrastructure and community necessary for Jamestown's survival and growth. Together, these individuals' efforts intertwined to shape the colony's fate and lay the groundwork for future English settlements in America. Jamestown's survival and eventual growth into a permanent settlement was the result of adaptation, resilience, and critical changes in both its economy and governance. Early on, trade with the Powhatan Confederacy was vital. The Native Americans supplied the settlers with corn, fish, and other essential resources, especially during times when Jamestown's food production failed. These exchanges, though often tense and unpredictable, provided a lifeline that kept the colony from complete collapse. A major turning point came with the development of tobacco as a cash crop. John Rolfe's successful cultivation of a sweeter, more desirable strain of tobacco in the early 1610s transformed Jamestown's fortunes. Tobacco quickly became the colony's economic backbone, fueling exports to England and creating a booming plantation economy. As demand grew, more settlers arrived, and land expansion became a priority, often leading to further encroachment on native lands. Governance also evolved to meet the colony's growing complexity. In 1619, the Virginia Company established the House of Burgesses, the first representative legislative assembly in English America. This body gave colonists a voice in local affairs and marked a significant step toward self-government. Although initially limited to white male landowners, the House of Burgesses set a precedent for democratic governance that would later influence the political development of the United States. That same year, 1619, also marked two other major developments that helped shape Jamestown into a more permanent society. The arrival of English women allowed for the establishment of family life and the growth of a stable, rooted community. At the same time, a Dutch ship brought the first African slaves to Virginia, introducing a system of forced labor that would expand and become deeply entrenched in American society. These changes, economic, political, and social, transformed Jamestown from a fragile outpost into a lasting English presence in the New World, setting patterns that would shape the future of colonial America. Jamestown's legacy is profound, serving as the blueprint for future English colonization in North America. As the first permanent English settlement, it proved that colonization in the New World was not only possible but potentially profitable. The survival and eventual success of Jamestown encouraged the English crown and private investors to sponsor additional colonies along the Atlantic coast, ultimately leading to the establishment of the 13 colonies and the expansion of English influence across the continent. The colony also left a lasting impact on American culture, governance, and economy. Culturally, Jamestown laid the foundation for the emergence of a distinctly American identity, blending European traditions with the challenges and opportunities of the New World. Politically, the creation of the House of Burgesses introduced the concept of representative government to English America, a system that would evolve and later become central to American democracy. Economically, the introduction of tobacco as a cash crop demonstrated the potential of plantation agriculture, setting a pattern of land use, labor systems, and export-driven economies that would dominate the southern colonies for centuries. Perhaps, most importantly, Jamestown offered enduring lessons through both its failures and its triumphs. The early years of disorganization, poor planning, and over-reliance on external support revealed the dangers of colonization without adequate preparation or understanding of the environment. Yet, the colony's eventual success underscored the importance of strong leadership, adaptability, and cooperation, both among settlers and with indigenous peoples, however strained those relations may have been. Jamestown's story is one of perseverance against overwhelming odds, and its legacy continues to shape how Americans understand their colonial roots and the origins of their national identity. Jamestown's history is filled with fascinating stories, enduring myths, and ongoing discoveries that continue to reshape our understanding of early colonial America. One of the most persistent myths surrounds the relationship between Pocahontas and Captain John Smith. Popularized by romanticized versions in books and films, the story of Pocahontas saving Smith's life has long been accepted as fact. However, historians now believe this dramatic rescue was likely a misunderstanding or symbolic ritual, rather than a literal life-or-death event. Furthermore, there is no evidence that Pocahontas and Smith had a romantic relationship. She later married John Rolfe, not Smith, and played a key diplomatic role, rather than a romantic one in Jamestown's survival. Jamestown also offers unique and sometimes eerie stories from its past. One such tale involves the brutal, starving time of 1609–1610, during which desperate colonists resorted to eating rats, shoe leather, and in extreme cases, even human remains. This dark chapter was long whispered about but confirmed in recent years through archaeological evidence that revealed signs of cannibalism on human bones found at the site. The Jamestown site itself has been a treasure trove of archaeological discoveries. Excavations over the past few decades have uncovered the original fort's remains, weapons, tools, pottery, and personal items belonging to the settlers. These artifacts offer vivid insights into daily life, struggles, and survival strategies. One particularly important find was the skeleton of a young Englishwoman, nicknamed Jane, whose remains bore marks of post-mortem butchery, clear evidence of the colony's desperation during the starving time. Together, these facts and findings challenge old assumptions, reveal new dimensions of Jamestown's story, and continue to deepen our understanding of this iconic settlement's place in American history. Jamestown stands as a cornerstone of American history, the first successful English settlement that laid the groundwork for the future United States. Its story is one of extraordinary struggle, adaptation, and endurance. From near starvation and conflict to eventual prosperity through tobacco and self-governance, Jamestown's experience captures the full spectrum of challenges that defined early colonization. It was a place where cultural worlds collided, where the seeds of American democracy were planted, and where economic systems, both promising and deeply troubling, took root. Jamestown's journey reminds us that colonization was not a smooth or heroic process, but a complex and often harsh reality. It required difficult choices, human resilience, and hard-earned lessons. The failures and successes of this small settlement continue to echo in the political, cultural, and social foundations of the United States. If Jamestown's story inspired or surprised you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you visited the Jamestown Historic Site or want to someday? Let us know. And if you ever get the chance, consider visiting the Jamestown Settlement and historic Jamestown in Virginia, where history comes to life through archaeology, reenactments, and exhibits that connect the past to the present.